the bullet that shattered the window pane of the general store in Fort McDowell, Arizona Territory, in the spring of 1882, was meant for the man standing beside Julia Fairchild, but it was her trust in humanity that took the fatal blow instead. She had been engaged to Robert Whitmore for 8 months, a man who came to town with promises of building a cattle empire and making her the queen of his ranch. Julia had believed every word, had given him access to her late father's savings, had planned a wedding for June. Then she discovered he already had a wife in Texas and 3 children he had abandoned. The bullet came from one of Robert's creditors, a man he had swindled in a land deal. Robert used Julia as a shield, pushing her into the path of danger as he fled through the back door, leaving her to face the armed man alone. The shopkeeper intervened and the creditor was arrested, but Robert vanished like smoke on the wind, taking her money and her ability to trust with him. That was 3 months ago. Now Julia lived in the small house her father had built on the edge of town, working as a seamstress to survive, her heart locked away behind walls she swore no man would ever scale again. She was 23 years old and felt ancient. Cole Anderson rode into Fort McDowell on a Tuesday afternoon with dust on his clothes and integrity in his eyes. He was 26, tall and lean, with sun-weathered skin and dark hair that curled slightly at his collar. He had been working cattle drives since he was 16, saving every dollar, and now he had enough to start his own small ranch. He needed supplies, a good horse, and honest work to build his dream. The first time he saw Julia, she was leaving the general store with fabric bundled in her arms, her brown eyes fixed on the ground, her posture defensive. A man called out to her, some crude invitation to dinner, and she quickened her pace without responding, her jaw tight. Cole watched her disappear down the street and felt something stir in his chest, something like recognition, though they had never met. He learned her story piece by piece over the next few days, the way you learn anything in a small town where gossip flows faster than whiskey. The bartender told him about Robert Whitmore while pouring Cole a beer. The boarding house owner added details about the stolen money while serving breakfast. The blacksmith mentioned the bullet and the cowardly flight while shoeing Cole's horse. Each person who spoke of Julia Fairchild did so with sympathy, but also with resignation, noting that she had become harder than desert stone, unreachable. Cole understood that kind of pain. His own mother had been abandoned by his father when Cole was 12, left with nothing but debt and 4 children to feed. He had watched her struggle, watched her learn to trust again, only to be betrayed by a man who courted her for her small piece of land. Cole had learned early that trust was currency, valuable and easily stolen. He had also learned that the only way to be worthy of it was to earn it through action, not words. He bought a small plot of land 5 miles outside Fort McDowell, a modest spread with a creek running through it, and enough grazing land for a starter herd. He needed fencing, lumber, and help. He hired 2 local men for day labor and began building, working from dawn until his muscles screamed and his hands bled. At night, he returned to town, ate a simple meal, and planned the next day's work. It was during one of these evening meals at the boarding house that he first spoke to Julia directly. She had been hired to mend the curtains in the dining room, working quietly in the corner while the other boarders ate and talked. Cole finished his meal and approached her with his hat in his hands. "Excuse me, Miss Fairchild," he said, his voice low and respectful. "I am Cole Anderson. I recently bought the old Patterson place east of here." She looked up briefly, her needle pausing. "Congratulations," she said, her tone flat, and returned to her stitching. "I am going to need some work done," he continued. Curtains for the windows once I get the house properly built, maybe some shirts made. I wanted to know your rates. I charge 50 cents for a shirt, $1 for curtains depending on size, she said without looking at him. Payment up front. That seems fair, Cole said. Though I cannot pay up front, I would need to pay upon completion. Then I cannot help you, Julia said, her voice firm. Good evening, Mr. Anderson. Cole nodded slowly, understanding the boundary she had drawn. I respect that, he said. If you change your mind, I will be around. He did not push. He simply tipped his hat and left, and that surprised Julia more than anything. Men had been pushing at her walls for months, trying to convince her they were different, better, worthy. Cole Anderson just accepted her terms and walked away. A week passed. Cole made progress on his ranch, getting the frame of a small house erected and the beginnings of a corral built. He came to town every few days for supplies, always polite to everyone, always paying his bills immediately, always keeping his word about when he would pick up orders or return borrowed tools. People began to notice. In a place where trust had to be rebuilt constantly, Cole was steady as a mountain. Julia noticed too, though she tried not to. She would see him at the general store, carefully counting out his money, never haggling unfairly, never making promises he could not keep. She heard the men talk about how hard he worked, how he paid fair wages, how he treated his hired help with respect. It meant nothing, she told herself. Robert had seemed honorable too at first. Then came the incident with the widow Henderson's fence. A storm knocked down a section of her property line, and her small flock of chickens escaped, scattering into the scrubland. The widow was 70 years old and could not chase them down alone. Julia watched from her window as several townspeople walked past the distressed woman, offering sympathies but no real help. They were busy, they had their own concerns, they would try to help later. Cole Anderson was riding past on his way out of town when he saw the situation. He immediately dismounted, tied his horse, and spent the next 3 hours rounding up chickens in the afternoon heat. Then he spent another 2 hours repairing the fence, using lumber he had purchased for his own ranch. When the widow tried to pay him, he refused. When she insisted, he suggested she might bake him a pie sometime if she was inclined, but only if it was no trouble. Julia watched all of this from across the street, pretending to arrange the display in her window. She felt something crack in the ice around her heart, just a hairline fracture, but it was there. The next time Cole came to town, she was leaving the post office just as he was entering. They nearly collided, and he stepped back quickly, steadying her with a gentle hand on her elbow, releasing her the moment she was balanced. I apologize, Miss Fairchild, he said. I was not watching where I was going. It is fine, she said, and found herself adding, I saw what you did for Mrs. Henderson. Cole shrugged. She needed help. Those chickens were surprisingly fast. Despite herself, Julia felt the corner of her mouth twitch. I imagine they were. I also heard you have been helping her with mending since her arthritis got worse, Cole said. Not charging your full rate, Julia stiffened. That is my business. It is, Cole agreed. I just meant it was kind. We need more of that around here. He tipped his hat and went into the post office, leaving Julia standing on the wooden sidewalk, confused by the warmth spreading through her chest. He had not tried to use the information to get closer to her, had not suggested it made them similar or that they should spend time together. He had simply acknowledged her kindness and moved on. Over the following weeks. A pattern developed. Cole would come to town, conduct his business with quiet efficiency, and occasionally cross paths with Julia. Their conversations were brief, surface level, respectful. He never asked her personal questions, never invited her anywhere, never pushed against her boundaries. He simply existed in her orbit, steady and reliable, like the sunrise. Julia began to notice details about him. The way he always held doors for others, regardless of their age or station. The way he spoke to the Mexican laborers in careful, practiced Spanish, treating them as equals. The way he broke up a fight outside the saloon one night without throwing a single punch, just stepping between the two drunken cowboys and talking them down with calm words and a firm presence. The way he always seemed to have time for people, even when he was clearly exhausted from his own work. She also noticed that he never courted anyone, never spent time in the saloon chasing cards or women, never boasted about his plans or his prospects. He just worked, saved, built, and lived with a quiet determination that spoke louder than any declaration. It was June when Cole finally returned to the boarding house dining room, where Julia was again working on mending. He approached her table with that same respectful distance. "Miss Fairchild," he said, "my house is finished enough to be livable. I still need those curtains. If you are willing, I can pay up front now." Julia looked up at him, studying his face. He met her gaze steadily, not challenging, not pleading, just waiting. 50 cents upfront for materials, she heard herself say. The remaining 50 cents on completion. Something flickered in Cole's eyes, something that might have been hope, but he just nodded. "That is more than fair, thank you." He counted out 50 cents in coins, placing them on the table beside her sewing basket. "I have 4 windows, all the same size. Nothing fancy needed, just something to keep the dust out and provide some privacy." "What color?" Julia asked, her professional instincts taking over. "I had not thought about it," Cole admitted. "What would you suggest?" "Blue keeps the heat out better than other colors," Julia said, "and it is calming." "Blue sounds perfect," Cole said. "When would you need to take measurements?" This was the moment Julia had been unconsciously dreading and anticipating. Going to his ranch meant being alone with him, meant trusting him enough to be vulnerable. Her hands tightened on her needle. Cole seemed to sense her hesitation. "I could bring you the exact measurements myself," he offered. "Or you could bring someone with you if you preferred. Mrs. Henderson has been asking about seeing my progress. She could ride out with you." The fact that he offered solutions without making her explain her fear, without making her feel foolish or damaged, made Julia's throat tight. "I will bring Mrs. Henderson," she said quietly. "Tomorrow afternoon, if that suits you." "Tomorrow afternoon is perfect," Cole said. "I will make sure to have coffee ready. The ride is about 45 minutes." He tipped his hat and left, and Julia sat staring at the coins on the table, feeling the ice around her heart crack a little more. The next day was clear and hot, typical for June in the Arizona Territory. Mrs. Henderson was delighted to be included, chattering happily as they rode in Julia's small buggy toward Cole's ranch. Julia had borrowed the buggy from the livery, another expense she could barely afford, but she needed the protection of having a vehicle and a chaperone, needed the barrier between herself and vulnerability. Cole's ranch came into view as they crested a small rise, and Julia felt genuine surprise. The house was small but well built, with clean lines and careful craftsmanship. The corral was sturdy, the barn modest but functional. Everything spoke of careful planning and honest work. There were no grand pretensions, no false promises in lumber and nails, just a solid beginning. Cole came out to meet them, helping Mrs. Henderson down from the buggy with patient care, then offering his hand to Julia. She hesitated only a moment before taking it, his palm warm and calloused against hers. He released her immediately once she was on the ground, respecting her space. "Welcome," he said, gesturing toward the house. "It is not much yet, but it is honest work." The interior of the house was sparse but clean. One main room served as living space and kitchen, with a fireplace built from local stone. 2 smaller rooms branched off, one for sleeping and one for storage. The windows were indeed all the same size, practical and well placed for light and cross-ventilation. Julia moved through the space professionally, taking measurements, making notes. Mrs. Henderson kept up a steady stream of conversation, asking Cole about his plans for the ranch, his cattle, his future. He answered her questions with the same patient honesty he showed everyone, describing modest goals and realistic timelines. "I am planning to start with 20 head of cattle," he explained. "Build the herd slowly over the next few years. I have learned that trying to grow too fast leads to debt and poor decisions." "A wise approach," Mrs. Henderson said approvingly. "Too many young men want everything immediately." "I have seen where that leads," Cole said quietly, and his eyes flickered briefly to Julia before returning to the widow. "I would rather build something that lasts." Julia finished her measurements and accepted the cup of coffee Cole offered. They sat at his simple wooden table, the three of them, and talked about the town, the weather, the upcoming territorial celebrations. It was surprisingly comfortable, and Julia found herself relaxing despite her determination to remain guarded. As they prepared to leave, Cole walked them back to the buggy. "Thank you for coming out," he said. "Both of you. It was good to have company." "How often do you come to town?" Mrs. Henderson asked, her matchmaking instincts clearly activated. "Usually twice a week for supplies and mail," Cole said. "Wednesdays and Saturdays. You should come to church on Sundays," the widow said firmly. "A man needs community, not just commerce." Cole smiled, the expression transforming his usually serious face. "You are probably right, madam. I will try to make it this Sunday." On the ride back to town, Mrs. Henderson was full of opinions. "That is a good man, Julia," she said. "A truly good man. They are rare as honest politicians." "I am just making him curtains," Julia said, her voice tight. "Of course you are, dear," the widow said, patting her hand. "Of course you are." But that night, lying in her bed, Julia could not stop thinking about Cole's ranch, about the care evident in every board and nail, about the way he had described building something that lasts. Robert had talked about empires and grandeur, about what he would give her, about the life she deserved. Cole talked about slow growth, honest work, and realistic goals. The difference was stark. She finished the curtains in 3 days, working with more care than usual, choosing a blue fabric that was both practical and pleasing to the eye, adding small details in the stitching that were not strictly necessary, but satisfied something in her artistic soul. When they were complete, she felt oddly reluctant to deliver them, as if doing so would close a door she was not ready to close. Cole came to town on Saturday, as he had said he would. His reliability should not have surprised her anymore, but it still did. She met him at the boarding house with the curtains wrapped in brown paper. "They are finished," she said, holding out the package. Cole took them carefully, his fingers brushing hers briefly. "That was fast. May I look?" "Of course." He unwrapped one of the curtains right there, holding it up to the light from the window, examining her work. His face showed genuine appreciation. "Miss Fairchild, this is beautiful work. The stitching is so fine, and these small details here, this pattern along the edge that was not necessary." "I thought it would look nice," Julia said, feeling strangely self-conscious. "It does. It is more than I expected." He rewrapped the curtains carefully and counted out the remaining 50 cents, then added another 25 cents to the pile. "That is too much," Julia protested. "It is exactly right for the quality of work you did," Cole said firmly. "You should be paid what you are worth, Miss Fairchild." The words hit her like a physical blow. Robert had always found ways to devalue her contributions, to suggest she should charge less, do more, be grateful for his attention. Cole was insisting she be paid fully for her skill and time. "Thank you," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I should be thanking you," Cole said. "These are going to make the house feel like a real home." He paused, shifting his weight slightly, and Julia realized with shock that he was nervous. Cole Anderson, who faced down drunken cowboys and rounded up wild chickens and built an entire ranch with his own hands, was nervous. "Miss Fairchild," he said slowly, "I know you have good reason to be cautious around men. I know someone hurt you badly. I want you to know that I understand and I respect your boundaries. But I also want you to know that if you ever wanted to talk, or needed help, or just wanted company that came with no expectations or demands, I would be honored to be that for you. I am not asking for anything. I am just letting you know that I am here, and I am not going anywhere, and I will earn your faith one day at a time, if you will let me try." The words hung in the air between them, honest and raw and terrifying. Julia felt panic rise in her throat, the urge to flee, to rebuild her walls, to protect herself. But she also felt something else, something that felt dangerously like hope. "I do not know if I can trust anyone again," she said, forcing the words out. "He took everything. My money, my dignity, my ability to believe people are who they say they are." "I know," Cole said gently. "And I am not asking you to trust me now. I am just asking you to let me show up. Let me be consistent. Let me prove through time and action that some people keep their word. You do not have to give me anything, Julia. You do not have to feel anything or promise anything. Just let me be present and we will see what happens. One day at a time." It was the first time he had used her given name, and hearing it in his voice, gentle and respectful, made her feel like crying. She nodded, not trusting her voice, and Cole smiled, that rare full smile that changed his whole face. "Thank you," he said. "That is all I ask." True to his word, Cole began showing up in ways that demanded nothing from Julia. He came to church on Sunday and sat 3 rows behind her, never approaching her after the service but always offering a polite nod if their eyes met. He continued coming to town on Wednesdays and Saturdays, conducting his business, sometimes crossing paths with her, sometimes not. When they did meet, he was always respectful, always appropriate, always genuine. But Julia began to notice other things. When her roof developed a leak after a summer storm, she woke one morning to find it repaired, fresh tar paper carefully applied. She never saw who did it, but she knew. When her small vegetable garden was being ravaged by rabbits, a sturdy fence appeared around it overnight, the construction quality unmistakable. When her buggy needed a new wheel bearing, she found the repair already done when she went to the livery, the owner saying someone had paid for it anonymously. She confronted Cole about it the next time she saw him. "You need to stop," she said without preamble. "You need to stop doing things for me." "I do not know what you mean," Cole said, but his eyes gave him away. "Yes, you do. The roof, the fence, the buggy wheel. You cannot just fix my problems without asking." "Why not?" Cole asked, his voice calm. "You needed help, I could provide it." "There were no strings attached, Julia. I did not expect anything in return." "That is not the point," Julia said, frustration rising. "I need to be able to take care of myself. I need to not be dependent on anyone." Cole was quiet for a moment, considering. "You are right," he finally said. "I apologize. I was not trying to make you dependent or suggest you could not take care of yourself. I was just trying to help because I care about your well-being. But I understand that my way of helping was not respectful of your independence. It will not happen again without your permission." Julia stared at him. Robert would have argued, would have told her she was being ungrateful, would have used her objections as proof that women were too emotional to understand men's good intentions. Cole just listened, acknowledged her point, and changed his behavior. It was disorienting. "Thank you," she said, her anger deflating. "I appreciate that you understand." "I do," Cole said. "And Julia, for what it is worth, I think you are one of the strongest people I have ever met. What you survived would have broken most people. The fact that you are still standing, still working, still living your life, that takes incredible strength. I do not think you need taking care of, but I would like to be someone you could rely on if you ever wanted that. There is a difference." Julia felt tears prick her eyes and blinked them back fiercely. "I do not know how to tell the difference anymore," she admitted, "between someone who wants to help and someone who wants to control." "I think time shows the difference," Cole said gently. "Control always comes with conditions and expectations. Help is freely given and freely received, with nothing demanded in return. I cannot prove that to you with words, only with time and consistency. So I will keep showing up and I will keep being honest, and someday maybe you will see the pattern clearly enough to trust it." The summer progressed, hot and dry, typical for Arizona territory. Cole's ranch grew slowly, just as he had planned. He acquired his starter herd of cattle, 20 head of mixed stock, and began the hard work of ranching. He hired help when he needed it, always paying fair wages, always treating his workers with respect. His reputation in Fort McDowell grew, people recognizing him as a man of his word, someone who could be trusted. Julia watched all of this from her careful distance, her heart a battleground between fear and longing. She had not realized how lonely she had become, until Cole offered her friendship without demands. She found herself looking forward to Wednesdays and Saturdays, to the possibility of seeing him in town, of having one of their brief, honest conversations that never pushed, but always left her feeling seen and respected. In late July, the town organized a summer social, a dance and potluck to celebrate the monsoon rains that had finally broken the worst of the heat. Julia had not attended a social event since the disaster with Robert, but Mrs. Henderson convinced her to come, to help set up if nothing else. The evening of the social, Julia wore a simple yellow dress she had made herself, practical but flattering. She arrived early to help arrange tables and hang lanterns, keeping herself busy with tasks that gave her an excuse to avoid socializing. As the sun set and people began arriving, she positioned herself near the food tables, playing hostess as a shield against unwanted attention. Cole arrived as the dancing began, wearing clean trousers and a pressed shirt, his hair still damp from washing. He helped himself to a plate of food and stood at the edge of the gathering, watching the dancers with a slight smile. Several women approached him, clearly interested, but he was polite and deflecting, never rude but never encouraging. Julia watched this from her position by the tables, feeling something uncomfortable twist in her stomach. It took her a moment to recognize the emotion as jealousy, and the recognition shocked her. She had no claim on Cole Anderson. He was free to dance with anyone he wanted. The fact that he was not dancing, that he was standing alone watching everyone else, should not have pleased her, but it did. Their eyes met across the crowd, and Cole nodded to her, that same respectful acknowledgement he always offered. Then he set down his plate and began walking toward her, and Julia's heart started beating faster. "Miss Fairchild," he said when he reached her, "you look very nice this evening." "Thank you," Julia said. "You clean up well yourself, Mr. Anderson." "I try," Cole said with a slight smile. "I wanted to ask you something, and I want you to know you can say no, and it will not change anything between us." Julia braced herself. "What is it?" "Would you like to dance with me?" Cole asked. "Just as friends, no expectations, no obligations, just two people enjoying music together." "But if you would rather not, I completely understand, and I will leave you in peace." Julia looked at him, at his honest face and patient eyes, at the way he stood with his hands relaxed at his sides, not reaching for her, not pressuring her, just offering. She thought about how many nights she had lain awake remembering what it felt like to dance with Robert, how special he had made her feel, how loved. She thought about how all of those feelings had been revealed as manipulation, as lies designed to control her. But Cole had never lied to her. Cole had been exactly who he presented himself to be consistently for months now. Cole had said he would earn her faith one day at a time, and he had been doing exactly that, never pushing, never demanding, just showing up. "Yes," she heard herself say, "I would like to dance with you." Something brilliant flashed in Cole's eyes, but he just offered his hand and led her to the area where couples were dancing. The band was playing a simple waltz, and Cole placed one hand carefully on her waist, taking her other hand in his, maintaining a respectful distance between them. They began to move, and Julia was surprised by how well Cole danced, his movements confident but not showy, his lead clear but not forceful. "You dance well," she said. "My mother insisted all her children learn," Cole said. She said it taught discipline and respect, knowing how to move with another person without stepping on them. "She sounds wise," Julia said. "She was," Cole said, his voice softening. "She died 2 years ago, fever." "I am sorry," Julia said, meaning it. "Thank you. She would have liked you." She had a soft spot for strong women who did not take nonsense from anyone. Julia felt herself smile despite her nervousness. "I am not sure I am as strong as you think I am." "I am sure you are stronger than you know," Cole said. His hand was warm on her waist, steady and sure, and Julia realized she felt safe, a feeling she had not experienced in a man's arms since before Robert, since before she learned that safety could be a lie. They danced through the song and into the next one, neither of them suggesting they stop. Around them, couples swirled and laughed, but Julia was only aware of Cole, of the way he moved, the way he smelled like soap and leather and honest work, the way he looked at her like she was precious but not fragile, valued but not possessed. When the music finally paused for the band to rest, Cole led her off the dance floor and brought her a cup of punch, staying by her side as they watched the other dancers. He did not pressure her for conversation, comfortable with silence, but answered when she asked him questions about his ranch, his plans, his life. "Why Fort McDowell?" she asked. "You could have started a ranch anywhere." "I had heard good things about the area," Cole said. "Good water, decent grazing, a town that was growing but not too wild. I wanted somewhere I could put down roots, build something permanent. I have been moving my whole life. I was ready to stay still." "You ever get lonely out there?" Julia asked, surprising herself with the personal question. "Sometimes," Cole admitted. "But I have learned that being alone is better than being with the wrong people. I would rather be lonely and honest than comfortable and compromised. I have seen too many people trap themselves in situations that slowly destroy them, just because they were afraid of being alone." Julia felt those words sink into her chest, settling somewhere deep. "I understand that," she said quietly. "I know you do," Cole said, meeting her eyes. "That is one of the things I admire about you, Julia. You chose loneliness and integrity over comfort and compromise. That takes courage." "It does not feel courageous," Julia said. "It feels like cowardice sometimes, like I am hiding." "There is a difference between hiding and healing," Cole said gently. "You are allowed to take time to recover. You are allowed to protect yourself while you rebuild your ability to trust. That is not cowardice. That is wisdom." Julia felt tears threaten again, and this time she did not fight them quite so hard. "You say things that make it hard to keep my walls up," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "I am not trying to break your walls down," Cole said. I am just trying to show you that when you are ready, if you are ever ready, there might be something good waiting on the other side. But there is no rush, Julia. No deadline. I meant what I said. One day at a time. For as long as it takes. The social continued around them. But Julia felt like they were in their own bubble. A space where honesty was safe and vulnerability was not a weapon someone could use against you. She let herself enjoy it. Just for this moment, let herself imagine what it might be like to trust again, to open her heart again, to let someone in. When the evening ended and people began heading home, Cole walked Julia back to her small house, keeping a respectful distance between them, not assuming anything. At her door, he tipped his hat. "Thank you for dancing with me," he said. "I will remember this evening for a long time." "So will I," Julia admitted. "Thank you for asking, and for understanding when I almost said no." "There is nothing to thank me for," Cole said. "You do not owe me anything, Julia, not gratitude, not time, not attention. Anything you give me is a gift, freely offered, and I will treasure it as such." He left before she could respond, walking back toward the boarding house where he stayed when he was in town overnight, and Julia stood at her door watching him go, feeling the walls around her heart crack a little more. August brought scorching heat and afternoon thunderstorms that turned the dry earth into brief mud and then dust again. Cole continued his pattern of coming to town twice a week, continued his patient presence in Julia's life. They had more conversations now, longer ones about everything and nothing. She learned about his childhood in Texas, about his siblings scattered across the territories, about his mother's strength and his determination to live a life that would have made her proud. He learned about her father, a surveyor who had died from a fall from his horse when Julia was 19, about her struggle to survive alone, about her dreams of someday having a dress shop of her own. "Why do you not open one?" Cole asked one Saturday afternoon as they stood in the shade of the general store's awning, watching a storm roll in across the desert. "No money," Julia said simply. "Robert took everything my father left me. I am barely surviving on what I make from mending and simple sewing. A shop would require space, inventory, equipment I cannot afford." Cole was quiet for a long moment, and Julia could almost see him thinking, weighing words. "If you could open a shop," he finally said, "what would it look like?" Julia allowed herself to imagine it, something she had not done since Robert destroyed her savings. "Small," she said. "Maybe 2 rooms. One for meeting with customers and displaying ready-made items, one for the actual sewing work. I would need a better sewing machine, the new kind that actually works properly. Bolts of fabric in different colors and weights. Patterns. Good scissors and measuring tools. A dress form. Some comfortable chairs for customers. A sign outside, something simple but elegant." She realized she had closed her eyes as she described it, the vision so clear in her mind. When she opened them, Cole was watching her with an expression she could not quite read. "You will have that someday," he said quietly. "I believe that." "Belief does not pay for things," Julia said, trying to keep the bitterness from her voice. "No, but hard work and time do," Cole said. "You are young, Julia. You are talented. You have already survived things that would have destroyed other people. You will build your shop. It might take longer than it would have before Robert, but you will do it, and it will be yours in a way it never would have been if he had paid for it." Julia felt something shift in her chest, some weight she had been carrying without realizing it. Cole was right. If Robert had funded her shop, it would have been his, not hers, another way to control her. Building it herself, with her own money and effort, would make it truly hers. The thought was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. The storm broke over them, rain falling in sheets, turning the street into a river of mud. They stood under the awning, close but not touching, watching the violence of the monsoon. Lightning split the sky, thunder following close behind, and Julia flinched at the noise. "I have never liked storms," she admitted. "Ever since I was a child." "Would it help if I told you the science behind them?" Cole asked. "Sometimes understanding makes things less frightening." Julia smiled despite her fear. "You know the science behind storms." "I know a little about a lot of things," Cole said. "My mother made sure we were educated, even though we were poor. She said ignorance was a choice and poverty was not an excuse for it." He explained thunderstorms to her, then, in simple terms, the way heat and moisture created updrafts, the way ice crystals collided to create static electricity, the way that electricity needed to discharge, seeking the path of least resistance. He made it logical, understandable, and Julia found her fear easing as her understanding grew. "You would have made a good teacher," she said when he finished. "I thought about it once," Cole admitted, "but I love working with my hands too much, love being outside. Teaching would have kept me in a schoolhouse, and I would have felt trapped." "Do you ever feel trapped on your ranch?" Julia asked. "Working every day, alone most of the time." "No," Cole said without hesitation. "I am building something that is mine, something that matters, something that will last. Every fence post I set, every calf that is born, every improvement I make, it all adds up to something permanent. I am creating a legacy, even if it is a small one. That does not feel like a trap. That feels like purpose." Julia understood that. Her sewing was the same, each stitch part of something larger, each completed garment a proof of her skill and effort. "I think I know what you mean," she said. The storm passed as quickly as it had come, leaving the air clean and cool. Cole prepared to head back to his ranch, and Julia surprised herself by not wanting him to leave. "Will you be in town on Wednesday?" she asked. "Yes," Cole said, that slight smile appearing. "I will need to check on mail and pick up some supplies. Will you be at the boarding house that afternoon?" "I could be," Julia said, feeling daring. "Mrs. Henderson usually has me working there on Wednesdays." "Then perhaps I will see you then," Cole said, his eyes warm. They did see each other that Wednesday, and the Wednesday after that, and soon it became an unspoken appointment, a time they both looked forward to. Their conversations deepened, moving from surface pleasantries to genuine sharing of thoughts and feelings. Julia found herself telling Cole things she had not told anyone about her fears, her doubts, her dreams. He listened without judgment, without trying to fix everything, just offering his presence and understanding. In September, Cole had to drive some of his cattle to the railhead in Phoenix, a week-long trip. Before he left, he stopped by Julia's house, hat in hand. "I am going to be gone for a bit," he said. "A week, maybe 8 days. I wanted to let you know so you would not think I had just stopped coming to town." The fact that he thought she might worry that he cared enough to tell her his plans made Julia's throat tight. "Be safe," she said. "The trail to Phoenix can be dangerous." "I will be careful," Cole promised. "And Julia, if you need anything while I am gone, you can ask Mrs. Henderson or the sheriff. They both know to keep an eye on things." "You told people to watch over me?" Julia asked, not sure if she was touched or annoyed. "I told them I was going to be gone and asked them to keep an eye on all my interests," Cole clarified. "You are not the only thing I care about in Fort McDowell, but yes, I worry about you. I know you can take care of yourself, but it makes me feel better knowing friends are around if you need them." Julia nodded, accepting this. "When you get back," she said slowly, "would you like to come for dinner? Nothing fancy, just a meal to celebrate a successful trip." Cole's face lit up like sunrise. "I would like that very much," he said. "Thank you, Julia." He was gone for 8 days, and Julia was startled by how much she missed him. She had grown accustomed to his presence, to the steady reliability of seeing him twice a week, to the comfort of their conversations. Fort McDowell felt emptier without him, though logically nothing had changed. He had never been there every day. But knowing he was not even in the area, that he was far away on a dangerous trail, made her anxious in ways she had not expected. She found herself thinking about him constantly, wondering if he was safe, if the cattle drive was going well, if he was sleeping enough, eating enough. She recognized these thoughts for what they were, the early signs of caring deeply for someone, and the recognition terrified her. She had sworn she would never let herself care again, never let herself be vulnerable again. But Cole had slipped past her defenses so gradually, so gently, that she had not realized how deeply he had embedded himself in her heart until he was gone. When he returned on a Tuesday afternoon, dusty and exhausted but safe, Julia happened to be at the general store. She saw him through the window, dismounting from his horse, and her heart leapt with such fierce joy that it took her breath away. She put down the fabric she had been examining and walked outside, propriety forgotten. "You are back," she said, and heard the relief in her own voice. Cole turned, and his tired face transformed with a smile. "I am back," he said. "The trip went well, all the cattle sold, got a good price. I am officially in the ranching business legitimately." "I am glad," Julia said. "I was worried." "Were you?" Cole asked softly, hope naked in his voice. "Yes," Julia admitted. "I missed you. I did not realize how much I had come to depend on seeing you until you were not here." Cole took a step closer, then stopped himself, clearly wanting to reach for her but respecting her boundaries. "I missed you too," he said. "The whole trip, I kept thinking of things I wanted to tell you, things I wanted to share. You are the first person I thought of when I got good news, the person I wanted to celebrate with." "Julia, I know we are taking this slowly, and I understand why, but I need you to know that I have fallen in love with you. I do not expect you to say it back, and I will keep being patient for as long as you need, but I could not come back and see you and not tell you the truth." Julia felt like the world had tilted. Cole loved her. This good, honest, patient man loved her. And the most terrifying part was that she loved him too, had fallen for him somewhere between his quiet kindness and his steadfast consistency, had tumbled into love without meaning to, without permission, without protection. "I am scared," she whispered. "I am so scared, Cole. I do not know if I can do this. What if you turn out to be like Robert? What if I am wrong again?" "Then you will survive," Cole said gently. "You survived Robert. You survived losing everything. You are stronger than your fear, Julia. But I also understand that strength does not mean you have to risk yourself again. If you need more time, I will wait. If you decide you cannot do this, I will accept that, even though it will hurt. I love you, and that means I want what is best for you, even if that is not me." "What if what is best for me is you?" Julia asked, tears streaming down her face now. "What if I love you too, but I am too broken to be what you deserve?" Cole closed the distance between them then, cupping her face gently in his hands, his thumbs wiping away her tears. "You are not broken," he said fiercely. "You are healing, and there is a difference. And Julia, you do not have to be anything other than exactly who you are. I do not need you to be perfect or fearless or completely healed. I just need you to be honest with me and let me stand beside you while you continue healing. We will figure out the rest together." "I do love you," Julia said, the words tumbling out. "I did not want to, I tried not to, but I do. I love you, Cole Anderson, and it terrifies me." "It terrifies me too," Cole admitted. "Loving someone is always a risk. But Julia, I promise you, I will never lie to you, I will never betray you, I will never take advantage of your trust. I will earn your faith one day at a time for the rest of our lives if you will let me. I am not Robert. I will prove that to you every single day." Julia kissed him then, rising on her toes and pressing her lips to his, and Cole responded with gentle hunger, his arms coming around her, holding her close but not crushing her, always mindful of her comfort, her boundaries, her needs. They stood on the street in broad daylight, kissing like the world had fallen away, and Julia felt something inside her unlock, some final wall crumbling, letting love flood in. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Cole rested his forehead against hers. "I still want to have that dinner you offered," he said. "I want to court you properly, Julia. I want to do this right." "You have been courting me properly for months," Julia said with a watery laugh. "But yes, come to dinner. Tomorrow night," Cole agreed. "I will be there." He kept his word, arriving at her house the next evening with wildflowers he had picked from his ranch, cleaned and dressed in his best clothes. Julia had made chicken and vegetables, a simple meal but prepared with care. They ate at her small table, talking and laughing, the conversation flowing as easily as it always had but with a new undercurrent of acknowledged love. After dinner, they sat on her small porch and watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and gold. Cole held her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "I have been thinking about the future," he said. "About what I want, what I hope for. And I know it is too soon to talk about some things, but I want to be honest with you about my intentions." "What are your intentions?" Julia asked, her heart beating faster. "I want to marry you," Cole said simply. "Not now, not until you are ready, but someday. I want to build a life with you, Julia. I want to support your dream of having a shop. I want to come home to you every night and wake up beside you every morning. I want to have children with you if you want children. I want to grow old with you. I want everything, and I want it with you." Julia felt joy and fear war in her chest. "I want those things too," she said carefully. "But Cole, I need time. I need to be sure, really sure. I need to trust that what we have is real and permanent." "I know," Cole said. "And I am not asking you to decide anything now. I am just telling you where my heart is, where I see this going, so you know I am serious. Take all the time you need, Julia. I am not going anywhere." The courtship that followed was unlike anything Julia had experienced with Robert. Where Robert had rushed her, pressuring her for commitment and access and control, Cole was patient, content to let their relationship develop at her pace. Where Robert had been full of grand gestures designed to impress, Cole showed his love through consistent small actions, fixing things around her house with her permission, bringing her small gifts that showed he paid attention to her preferences, supporting her work and dreams. Julia began to see the pattern Cole had promised, the steady reliability that proved his character. He never canceled plans without good reason and advance notice. He never promised things he could not deliver. He never pressured her for more physical intimacy than she was comfortable with. He was exactly who he presented himself to be, day after day, week after week. In October, Julia took the bold step of visiting Cole's ranch alone, riding out on a Sunday afternoon. Cole was repairing a section of fence when she arrived, and the look of surprised delight on his face when he saw her made the ride worth it. "I wanted to see what you have been working on," she said. "If that is acceptable." "It is more than acceptable," Cole said, setting down his tools. "I am honored. Let me show you around." He walked her through the ranch, showing her the improvements he had made, the new barn he was building, the cattle grazing peacefully in the pasture. His pride in his work was evident but not boastful, the satisfaction of someone who had achieved their goals through honest effort. "It is wonderful, Cole," Julia said. "You should be proud of what you have built." "I am," Cole said, "but it feels incomplete. I always imagined building this with someone, sharing it with someone. It is good, but it could be better. It could be a home instead of just a ranch. Julia understood what he was not quite saying. "How long does it take to build something like this?" she asked. "To go from nothing to what you have now. Depends on how much capital you start with and how hard you are willing to work," Cole said. "I started with decent savings and I work hard. It took me about 18 months to get to this point. Another year and I will be comfortable instead of just surviving. 5 years and I will be prosperous if I am careful and lucky." "And a shop?" Julia asked. "How long to save for a shop?" Cole looked at her carefully. "What are you asking, Julia?" "I am asking how long before we could both have what we want," Julia said. "If we were working toward it together." Cole went very still. "Are you saying what I think you are saying?" "I am saying I love you," Julia said, her voice stronger now. "I am saying I trust you. I am saying that if you asked me to marry you, I would say yes. Not because I am desperate or needy or trying to be taken care of, but because I genuinely want to build a life with you. You earned my faith, Cole, one day at a time, just like you promised." Cole closed the distance between them and kissed her, and this time there was no hesitation, no fear, just pure joy and love. When he pulled back, he was grinning. "Julia Fairchild, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that I am worthy of your trust? Will you build a future with me, side by side, partners in everything?" "Yes," Julia said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, Cole Anderson, I will marry you." They married in November, a small ceremony in the Fort McDowell church with Mrs. Henderson and a few close friends as witnesses. Julia wore a dress she had made herself, cream-colored with delicate embroidery, the most beautiful thing she had ever created. Cole wore his best suit, his face lit with a joy that made him handsome beyond measure. The preacher spoke about trust and partnership, about building a life together on the foundation of faith and love. Julia felt the words resonate in her soul, felt the rightness of this choice, this man, this moment. When Cole slipped the simple gold ring on her finger and promised to love and cherish her all the days of his life, she believed him with her whole heart. They moved into Cole's ranch house, and Julia began the process of making it a home. She added her touches, curtains and quilts and small decorations that softened the masculine simplicity of the space. She set up a corner for her sewing, and Cole built her a proper workbench and storage for her supplies. They worked together on the ranch, Julia learning to help with the cattle and chickens, Cole learning to cook and clean alongside her, neither of them falling into rigid roles but instead figuring out together how to make their partnership work. It was not always easy. Julia still had moments of fear, times when old wounds would resurface and she would panic, certain that everything was about to fall apart. Cole learned to recognize these moments, learned to give her space when she needed it and reassurance when she asked for it, never taking her fear personally, always patient. "I am sorry," she said one night after a particularly bad episode where she had convinced herself that Cole was going to leave her, that she was not good enough to keep him. "Do not apologize," Cole said, holding her close. "Healing is not linear, Julia. You are going to have bad days. That does not change how I feel about you or my commitment to our marriage. I told you I would earn your faith one day at a time. That did not stop at our wedding. I will keep earning it for the rest of our lives." In January of 1883, Julia discovered she was pregnant. The news filled her with joy and terror in equal measure. Cole was thrilled, already planning how to make the house safer for a baby, talking about cribs and futures and all the love they would give this child. "What if I am a terrible mother?" Julia asked one night, her hand on her still flat stomach. "You will not be," Cole said with absolute certainty. "You are kind and strong and loving. You will teach our child about resilience and integrity and how to treat people with respect. You will be amazing, Julia. I have no doubt." Their son was born in September of 1883, a healthy baby with Cole's dark hair and Julia's brown eyes. They named him James, after Julia's father, and from the moment he was placed in her arms, Julia understood a new dimension of love, fierce and protective and overwhelming. Cole was a devoted father, taking his share of the nighttime feedings, walking the floor with a colicky baby, changing diapers without complaint. He approached fatherhood the way he approached everything else, with patient consistency and genuine care. Julia's sewing business grew during this time. Women in Fort McDowell and the surrounding ranches began seeking her out, impressed by the quality of her work. She began taking larger orders, making wedding dresses and formal wear, building a reputation. Cole encouraged her, helping with James when she needed to work, never suggesting she should give up her dreams now that she was a wife and mother. By the time James was 2 years old, Julia had saved enough money to open a small shop in town. Cole helped her renovate the space, building display cases and a proper work area. The day she hung the sign outside, "Fairchild Fine Sewing," she cried, thinking about how far she had come from the broken woman Robert had left behind. "You did this," Cole said, his arm around her waist. "All by yourself. I am so proud of you, Julia." "Not all by myself," Julia corrected. "You supported me every step of the way. This is ours, Cole. Everything we have built together is ours." They had 2 more children over the years, a daughter named Rose in 1886 and another son named Matthew in 1889. The ranch prospered, Cole's careful management and hard work paying off. Julia's shop became one of the most successful businesses in Fort McDowell, women coming from as far as Phoenix to commission her work. But more than the material success, more than the growing ranch and thriving business, what mattered most was the life they had built together. Their home was filled with love and laughter, their children growing up secure in the knowledge that they were cherished. Julia and Cole remained partners in every sense, supporting each other's dreams, working through challenges together, their love deepening with each passing year. On their 10th wedding anniversary in November of 1893, they sat on their porch watching the sunset, just as they had done so many times before. Their children were asleep inside. The ranch was peaceful, and Julia felt contentment settle over her like a warm blanket. "Do you remember what you told me the day you came back from Phoenix?" she asked Cole. "When you said you would earn my faith one day at a time." "I remember," Cole said, his hand finding hers automatically. "You did it," Julia said. "You earned it completely." "I trust you more than I trust myself sometimes. You kept your promise, Cole. Every single day for over a decade, you kept your promise." "It was never a hardship," Cole said. "Loving you, proving myself worthy of you, that has been the greatest joy of my life." "You took a chance on me, Julia, even when you were terrified. You let me in. You trusted me with your heart. I do not take that lightly. I never will." "I know," Julia said. "That is why I love you so much. That is why I will spend the rest of my life grateful that you rode into Fort McDowell that day, that you saw me when I was broken, and you did not try to fix me or save me. You just stood beside me while I healed myself, ready to catch me if I stumbled but never trying to carry me. You gave me the space to become whole again, and then you loved me, all of me, without reservation." Cole pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. "You were never broken, Julia. You were wounded but never broken. You just needed time and safety to heal. I am honored that you let me provide that for you." They sat in comfortable silence as the sky darkened and stars began to appear. Inside, Julia could hear one of the children stirring, and she knew in a moment she would need to go inside. to tend to her family, to continue the beautiful, ordinary work of living the life they had built together. But for now, she sat with her husband, the man who had proven that not all promises were lies, that not all trust was misplaced, that love could be patient and kind and real. The man who had earned her faith one day at a time and continued earning it still, not because he had to, but because that was who he was. Fort McDowell spread out below them, the town where their story had begun, where Julia had been shattered and then slowly, carefully, put herself back together with Cole standing guard while she worked. It was not a story of rescue, but of partnership. Not a tale of a man saving a broken woman, but of two people choosing each other, day after day, building something permanent and true. The years continued to pass, bringing challenges and joys in equal measure. There were droughts that tested the ranch, illnesses that frightened them, moments of fear and doubt. But through it all, Cole remained exactly who he had always been, steady and true, keeping his promises, earning her faith fresh each day. Julia's shop expanded, and she eventually hired 2 young women to help with the work, teaching them the trade the way she wished someone had taught her. She took pride in paying them fair wages, in treating them with respect, in being the kind of employer she would have wanted when she was young and struggling. Cole's ranch became one of the most respected in the area, known for quality cattle and honest dealings. He treated his workers well, paid them fairly, and developed a reputation as a man whose word was his bond. Young men sought jobs at his ranch not just for the wages, but for the chance to learn from someone who embodied integrity. Their children grew into fine adults. James became a lawyer, fighting for justice in the territorial courts, his parents' lessons about integrity and fairness shaping his career. Rose took over the sewing shop when Julia was ready to step back, bringing new ideas while maintaining the quality and reputation her mother had built. Matthew stayed on the ranch, loving the land and the work as much as his father did, eventually taking over the day-to-day operations. As Julia and Cole moved into their later years, their love only deepened. They had grown old together, their faces lined with age and sun, their bodies moving slower but their commitment to each other as strong as ever. They still sat on their porch most evenings, watching sunsets and talking about everything and nothing. On their 30th wedding anniversary in November of 1913, their children and grandchildren gathered at the ranch for a celebration. The house was full of noise and love, 3 generations of family built on the foundation Julia and Cole had laid so carefully, so intentionally. That evening, after everyone had gone to bed, Julia and Cole found themselves alone on their porch once again, wrapped in blankets against the November chill. 30 years, Julia said wonderingly. How did we get so lucky, Cole? It was not luck, Cole said. It was choice. Every day we chose each other. Every day we chose to keep our promises, to be patient, to love each other well. That was not luck, Julia. That was work, good work, the best work I have ever done. Do you remember how scared I was? Julia asked. How certain I was that trusting you would destroy me. I remember, Cole said. And I understood. You had every reason to be scared. What Robert did to you, that was real damage. But you were brave enough to try again, brave enough to let me prove myself, and that bravery changed both our lives. You made it safe to be brave, Julia said. That was your gift to me, Cole. You created a space where I could heal, where I could learn to trust again, where love did not come with conditions or demands. You loved me freely, patiently, and that made all the difference. Cole took her hand, the same gesture he had made thousands of times over 3 decades, still bringing comfort and connection. I would do it all again, he said. Every moment, every challenge, every day of earning your faith. Loving you has been the greatest privilege of my life, Julia. You made me better, made me want to be worthy of you every single day." Julia leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling the solid warmth of him, the reliability that had never wavered in 30 years. "We built something good," she said. "Look at our children, our grandchildren, this ranch, my shop, this life. We built something that will outlast us, Cole. We created a legacy of love and integrity that will continue for generations." "We did," Cole agreed. "Together. Just like I promised that day in Fort McDowell when I told you I would earn your faith one day at a time. I meant it then, and I mean it now. Every day with you is a gift, Julia, and I will spend every remaining day I have making sure you know how loved you are." They sat together in the comfortable silence of long marriage, the kind of silence that comes when two people know each other so deeply that words become optional. Around them, the ranch settled into night, the same land they had worked together for 3 decades, the same home they had filled with love and family. Julia thought about the young woman she had been when Cole rode into town, broken and afraid, certain she would never trust again. She thought about how Cole had approached her with patience and respect, never pushing, never demanding, just consistently showing up and proving through action that he was different, that he was worthy, that love did not have to hurt. She thought about their wedding day, how terrified she had been even as she said her vows, part of her still waiting for Cole to reveal himself as another Robert, another man who would take and hurt and betray. She thought about how Cole had proven those fears wrong, day after day, year after year, never giving her reason to doubt, always keeping his promises. She thought about their children, the family they had created together, the values they had instilled. James with his commitment to justice, Rose with her dedication to fair treatment of employees, Matthew with his integrity in business dealings. Their children had learned what real love looked like by watching their parents, had learned that trust was earned through consistency, that promises were meant to be kept, that partnership was about building together rather than one person diminishing the other. "What are you thinking about?" Cole asked, his voice gentle in the darkness. "I am thinking about how glad I am that you rode into Fort McDowell that day," Julia said. "I am thinking about how you changed my life, not by saving me, but by believing I could save myself and standing beside me while I did it. I am thinking about how grateful I am that you had the patience to earn my trust, that you understood I needed time, that you loved me enough to let me heal at my own pace." "There was never any question of not waiting," Cole said. "From the first moment I saw you, I knew you were worth waiting for. I knew whatever time it took, whatever effort it required, you would be worth it. And I was right, Julia. You were worth every moment of patience, every day of proving myself, every small step forward. You are the best thing that ever happened to me." Julia turned to look at her husband, his face illuminated by the lamplight from inside the house. She could see the young cowboy he had been in the lines of his older face, could see the same integrity in his eyes that had first made her dare to hope that not all men were like Robert. "I love you," she said. "I will love you until my last breath and beyond. You took my shattered heart and you did not try to fix it yourself. You just held the pieces gently while I put them back together, and then you loved the result, scars and all. That is the greatest gift anyone ever gave me, Cole, the gift of time and space and patient love. And you gave me purpose," Cole said. "You gave me someone to be worthy of, someone to build for, someone to share this life with. Before you, I was just working toward goals. After you, I was working toward a real life filled with meaning and love and family. You made everything better, Julia. You made everything matter." They kissed then, a kiss that held 30 years of love and trust and partnership, a kiss that promised whatever time they had left would be spent together, still choosing each other, still building their life day by day. Inside the house, their family slept, safe and loved. Outside, the ranch stretched into the darkness, solid and permanent, a testament to hard work and careful planning. The town of Fort McDowell lay beyond, grown larger over the decades but still the place where their story had begun. Julia and Cole sat on their porch, holding hands, watching the stars emerge in the vast Arizona sky. They had built something beautiful together, something that had required courage from Julia and patience from Cole, something that proved trust could be rebuilt, that love could heal, that promises could be kept. It had started with a simple declaration: "I will earn your faith one day at a time." And Cole had done exactly that, day after day, year after year, decade after decade. He had proven through consistent action that he was worthy of trust, that his love was real and permanent, that he would never betray the faith Julia had so carefully, so bravely placed in him. And Julia had proven equally brave, opening her wounded heart to the possibility of love again, taking the risk of trusting despite her pain, choosing hope over fear. Together, they had built a life that honored both their struggles and their triumphs, a partnership based on mutual respect, patient understanding, and deep, abiding love. As the night deepened and the air grew colder, they finally stood to go inside, their movements synchronized after so many years together. At the door, Cole paused and turned back for one last look at the land they had built together. "No regrets," he said, more statement than question. "Not a single one," Julia confirmed. "Every day with you has been exactly what I needed, exactly what I wanted. You kept your promise, Cole. You earned my faith one day at a time, and you never stopped earning it. That is more than I ever dreamed possible when I was that broken woman in Fort McDowell." "You were never broken," Cole said one final time. "Just wounded. And wounds heal given time and care and love. We healed together, Julia. We built together. And we will finish this life together, just as we promised 30 years ago." They went inside then, closing the door on the night, moving into the warm light of their home. Their story, which had begun with shattered trust and careful patience, had become something beautiful and lasting. It was a testament to the power of consistent love, of promises kept, of faith earned through daily action rather than empty words. Julia and Cole Anderson had proven that broken trust could be rebuilt, that love could flourish after betrayal, that the right person would be willing to earn faith one day at a time, for as long as it took. Their life together was not a fairy tale of instant healing and perfect happiness. It was something better, a real story of two real people who chose each other despite fear, who built together despite challenges, who loved each other faithfully through all the days of their lives. And as they settled into bed that night, Julia's head on Cole's shoulder, his arm around her, they both knew that their story was complete. They had built their legacy, raised their family, created something permanent and good. Whatever time remained would be spent just as they had spent the past 30 years, together, faithful, loving each other well. The trust that had been shattered before had been rebuilt, stronger than ever, through the patient, consistent love of a cowboy who understood that faith was earned through action, not words. And the woman who had been brave enough to trust again had found not just love, but partnership, not just healing, but wholeness, not just promises, but proof that those promises would be kept. Their story ended not with grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but with the quiet satisfaction of a life well lived together, a faith well earned, a love that had proven itself true through 3 decades of daily choosing, daily commitment, daily love. It was exactly the ending they both deserved, exactly the life they had both earned through courage and patience and unwavering dedication to each other. And in Fort McDowell, Arizona Territory, their story became legend, not because it was extraordinary, but because it was possible. It proved that trust could be rebuilt, that love could heal, that the right person would be willing to earn your faith one day at a time for all the days of their life. It was a story of hope, and hope was always worth believing in.